Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Your Finest Hour. I am your host, Norman Jiggers. And for those of you that are actually watching the episode, you can see the new digs behind me. If you're listening to the episode, thank you for tuning in for another week. If you're viewing the episode, try to drop you a little bit of eye candy. So this week is on staying true to the things you enjoyed as a kid and how they represent themselves different as an adult. So, what do I mean by that? A few days ago, I was talking to my fiance about what I ideally wanted to do with my degree. Currently, I'm pursuing my doctoral degree at UNC Chapel Hill in organizational leadership and learning. What we ended up figuring out from my past is that it has always been a dream of mine to stand behind a podium and teach at a great scale. So, having like 50 students, 100 students, it's just a very like small intimate environment. And when I say small, that's relatively speaking, not like in front of 1,000 people or anything like that. But that's been a dream of mine since I was a kid and always wanted to be a professor. Really, I wanted to major in philosophy. I wanted to get my PhD in philosophy. And so once I got through high school, the plan was that I was going to go to Michigan State, initially in history and then transitioning eventually into philosophy, just so I could have a very broad range of subjects that I could speak on, and philosophy, in my opinion, covered all those things. But yeah, I really wanted to teach at Michigan State and eventually go on and write my own books, the art of philosophy, all those things. For those that know my story, you can see how that played out. I didn't do any of those things, but for anyone that doesn't know me, the story goes that I left college after my senior year of high school and I joined the Air Force. I ended up going back to college, but it wasn't until about my fifth year of service. And even then, I got my degree in intelligence studies, which kind of sort of has nothing to do with history and definitely has nothing to do with philosophy, not in the field that I wanted to study. Well, to continue on the story, after about my fourth deployment and 1,000 hours in the U-28 at that point, I found myself becoming a flight instructor at a very young age. I was 22 years old when I became a flight instructor in the U-28. And then I was a weapons school instructor by the age of 25. I had just turned 25. And that's where I taught there for about 4 years. If you look back on it, there's a long history of me enjoying what ended up being the art of teaching, or the practice of teaching, I guess you could call it. But it definitely did not go how I had pictured it, quote unquote. Now, why do I say that? In the last 3 years, I've stumbled across Dr. Andrew Huberman, who teaches neuroscience at the School of Stanford. He's got his own podcast, and he loves to communicate the art and science of neuroscience. Now, what I recognize from him is that he takes part of what he teaches at Stanford and then directly applies it to people who want to listen to what he has to say, and not necessarily just students forced to listen to him at his school, which was always a fear of mine, that I would study all these things in philosophy, and then once I get to the point that I was standing behind the podium, I would then teach those things and nobody would give a shit, was the initial fear of mine. Once I got to the weapons school, I still had a little bit of the same fear, but then I recognized that the instructors have what the students want, and that's the patch on their shoulder. You can see the emblem behind me in various places, but the students kind of have to listen to what we have to say, whether they like to or not. Fast forward to today, like I was saying earlier in the episode, I'm currently pursuing my doctorate. I'm trying to build this podcast to mirror something like what he has. And then if I can eventually teach at a university level, if that looks like me teaching on the podcast, either way, I'm winning because I'm doing exactly what I wanted to do at 18, which was teaching, influencing at scale, and really help others develop how they think. And while it doesn't really look like anything like I thought it was going to look like, there's no tests, there's no, history classroom, no traditional like academic path, but the core of what I wanted to do, I mean, I'm living it, right? So what I learned from my own experience is that the path you pursue doesn't always look like what you assume it will. When I was 18, I thought that teaching was standing in a college classroom talking about the Civil War, for example. I never imagined I'd be encouraging fighter pilots to think outside the box or sharing leadership lessons through a podcast. That concept when I was 18 years old just didn't make any sense. Like, it's not something I could even visualize at the time, right? But when you look back on it, it's all the same core drive. It's me helping people develop their minds and make better decisions. So at the end of most of these episodes, I always have, a challenge or a mission back to the audience. And this week, what I want you to do is to think back on your path, think back on what genuinely energized you as a kid or as a teenager. And I'm not talking about job titles, but I'm talking about the underlying thing that you wanted to do. Did you enjoy being around your grandparents or helping the elderly, for the same example, solving problems for other people, the nature of just wanting people to be more productive? The list could go on, but it's truly your list to discover. This week I'd like for you to reflect on that path, on your current path. Are you happy with the outcome? Are you closer to the core drive than you actually think it, and it's just not in a way that you probably expected? I took a note earlier of what I really wanted people to take away from this episode. And what I ended up writing down was that the path doesn't always look like what you assume it will. But if you stay true to the things you enjoyed and say no to the things you don't, you'll end up exactly where you wanted to be. It just may look a little bit different than what you thought it would 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Okay, that's a lesson for this week. I hope you all enjoy learning as much as I enjoy making. Um, if anything, I really hope you enjoy the first visual episode of me in front of camera. So we always talk about first. Here's another one, but don't want to take any more of your time. Until next time, I hope you have a great week. You know how to get a hold of me. Hit me up on Instagram at NORM_MIKEL. And that's all I got for you. See you.